She does so many different types of exercise. There's a program in there for everything, and it's all by video.
That's great. I really love that idea, although let's point out to the listeners, you do actually have to do what she's telling you to do in the video. You can't just watch it, can you?
No, I wish.
Doesn't count if you just watch it.
Power to Live More with Joe Dodds.
Welcome to the Power to Live More podcast, all about productivity, organisation, well-being, energy and resilience.
I'm Jo Dodds, and I started this show to enable interesting people to share their stories about how they use their power to live more, and by that I mean to do the stuff that they want to do more than the stuff that they need to or should do. It's about creating a life for yourself where you have the energy, health and space to be happy and fulfilled, spending your time as you'd like, whether that be at work, home or somewhere else entirely. That's your choice.
Hello, my name is Ellie Dodds and I'm co-presenter, and today Jo is interviewing Janine Ogg of Get It Done Mum. Jo and Janine, J9 as she is often known, originally connected via a marketing forum in something like 2010, as J9 and another Jo, J9's business partner, were setting up their original business. They worked with our Jo to get their website and social media marketing going. They've kept in touch since, and Jo was really pleased when J9 agreed to come on the podcast. From New Zealand, J9, along with her business partner Jo, is a co-founder of Get It Done Mum, where they work with mums who are breaking the 9-to-5 mould and redefining what they do for a living on their own terms. New technologists and the advert of the internet have opened up so many new opportunities for women to start up businesses and earn a great income part-time. But unfortunately, for many mums it doesn't quite work out like that, and their business becomes another stress in their life that constantly overwhelms them and never earns them enough money. That's where Jo and J9 come in. They've helped hundreds of busy mums figuring out how they can get more done with less stress in their business by helping them hone in on what is most important for them to be focusing on. No more spreading themselves too thin. When she's not coaching mums, J9 is hanging out with her family and go to the beach, fixing up their falling down bush hut or hanging in the shed with the kids, which is her partner's pottery out the back. Back to the studio.
Today I'm interviewing Janine Ogg of Get It Done Mum. So hi Janine, great to have you with me.
Jo, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on as a guest.
One of my international guests again. So you're from sunny New Zealand now, aren't you?
That's right. Yeah, we're just starting to get some sunshine. We're coming into spring, so the cold weather is easing off, and we're starting to spend a few days at the beach, which is nice.
I don't think we want to hear that in England, as it's just going the opposite way. So tell me a bit more about you then, what you do and where you do it.
Sure. So I'm based in New Zealand in a little town called Masterton, about 20,000 people. And from here, I'm a mum and I'm also an entrepreneur, I guess you'd say. I have an online business called Get It Done Mum with my business partner, Jo, who lives probably about 6 hours north of me. Everything that we do is online. And what we do is we're business coaches for mums specifically. So over at Get It Done Mum, we help mums with their strategies. And we help them to build a business that they love, a profitable business in less than 20 hours a week. So our focus is really on being incredibly time efficient and creating a business model and a business strategy that means that you can earn a full-time income working part-time. And a lot of our mums are doing that from home. Not all of them, but the majority probably.
I think we need to have you on a webinar or something to learn how to do that. When we were talking earlier and you were asking me how many hours I was doing, and I was saying, well, I have got 2 different businesses. I'm just making excuses, aren't I?
We'd love to be to do that. We have got a webinar where we talk through that with our mums. So anytime, Jo, anytime.
Lovely. And so you're working from home. So do you have an office or do you work in a part of the house that isn't just the office? How does that work?
Yep, got an office in that. It's a really lovely little office actually. It looks out onto the back garden, so I've got some double doors. It's not huge, it's kind of small, and it does double up as another living space as well. So my daughter Bella, who's just turned 5, she's got her own little work desk. She calls it her office, which backs onto my desk. And then my other daughter Molly has also got a drawing space out here. She's 2.5. So it's kind of shared, but when I'm working, the children aren't generally here. And I've got one of these beautiful old antique desks that can kind of fold up. So what I like to do is pack everything into it and then slam it shut at the end of my work day, so it just looks like a lovely desk and it's not so associated with work.
Love it. So when we talk about evening routines and how you stop work, it won't necessarily be an evening routine for you if you're doing part-time, but that routine to close the office, I love that, the concept of
I try to do that, but now that we're podcasting as well, I've had to get this sort of setup where I've got like piles of books on my desk to get the computer and the microphone and things at the right height. So yeah, it's gone a bit askew, that strategy at the moment, but we're getting there. So it's a lovely space. I love being able to open the doors in the summer, and I'm right by the garden, and sometimes I go out into the garden, put my sunnies on and work out there on a nice day. So yeah, pretty lucky.
I love the idea of having the children in there, not necessarily, as you say, when you're trying to get proper work done, but I like the whole idea of sort of role modelling a lifestyle and a sort of business life to children. I try and do that with little Doddsy, and she certainly seems to be benefiting from it. Do your children sort of understand that you're working from home? Do they know that's what you do?
I don't think Molly really has any idea, but Bella, who's 5, she does. But my work's not as interesting as her dad's work. Like, it's not as tangible. Like, my partner Sam is a potter. He's a ceramicist. So we've got a big old shed out the back he runs his pottery from, and she is out there all the time. Like, since she's been little, she's been, wanting to throw on the wheel, throw pots, and she goes out there and does a lot of clay work. So it's only recently that she really wanted to have a desk, and today she was humming a tune. It's so funny you should say that, because she was humming "Want to Get It Done, Mum," like this. She'd been listening to one of our videos and was kind of singing our theme song. Like, oh no. So it's definitely, it's sinking in there somewhere at some level. Yeah.
I can see the pottery probably is a bit more exciting than paperwork and computers. No, we love our computers, don't we? So
all she sees is me on the computer, but she doesn't kind of understand. She knows I'm meeting with people and talking with people, so maybe when she's a bit older. Yeah. Cool.
So tell us about what you do when you sort of get going in the morning. Do you have a morning routine? Do you work particular hours on a day, or does it sort of fit in with your routine other than that?
Yeah, no, we do have quite a routine because we're both self-employed and working from home, and we've got the 2 under 5s. We've found it really useful to have a routine. Otherwise, I just really need that time when the children aren't here to be able to get work done. I'm not really trying to juggle work while the kids are around, because I find that too hard. So we have the children in daycare. Probably, a day and a half a week they're in daycare, and then another couple of days my partner works at the daycare centre. He's just started working there because he wanted to spend more time with the kids, and he loves working with children, and so the daycare said, well, do you want to come and work? And so he's doing a couple of days with them. So I've just upped my work hours slightly, so I'm working about probably 15 to 18 hours a week at the moment. So on the days that I work, it's sort of get up around 7, and we sort of have to be ready by 8:30, to get the kids to school. We're not very good really at getting up and getting up in the morning. So we take a fairly relaxed approach. And so they're at daycare, and then at the end of the day, really just I usually pick them up about 2:30, 3 o'clock, and then have time to hang out with the kids, dinner. I don't tend to work in the evenings. I have 1 or 2 nights a week that I'll make bookings in the evenings, but I often find I'm just really tired in the evenings after putting the kids down, so I try to limit that as much as I can. But I run a mastermind once a month and do interviews and things for like this interview and podcast interviews in the evenings sometimes. So it's just dinner and hanging out with the kids and getting them to bed, really.
Yeah. So as far as getting things done in limited time, I normally ask people if they use to-do lists and how they manage their time. I mean, this is really what you do. You help people to get more done in less time to have successful businesses. So how do you make sure that works for you?
Well, I guess the key one here for us, and what we're teaching about a lot, is around strategy, because we believe that, no matter how many to-do lists you have or how many amazing technological tools you're using, if you don't have your strategy right, it doesn't matter. You're still not going to achieve what you're setting out to achieve if you don't have the right strategy in place. So we consistently see people spending a lot of time on things that aren't actually contributing to what it is they want to achieve in their business. So what we're teaching, a lot of it came out from what we've done as well. So what we do to be really productive and really focused is we have 2 really clear milestones that we have for our business, and usually one's around an income generation milestone and one's for us an audience building milestone. And for a lot of our clients it turns out to be the same, because they're 2 really important things for building an online business, but sometimes they can be different. And then for each of those milestones we have 2 or 3 underlying strategies that are sort of that, well, we've set this goal, this milestone, what are our 2 to 3 strategies that we're going to use to achieve it? And so that drives everything that we do. So we have those, we check in with those really regularly, make sure that they still feel right, and we're really disciplined about the fact that if something isn't sort of siloing into those milestones, if something isn't getting us closer to those milestones, then we let it go. Because when you've only got 10 or 15, or some of our mums only have 5 hours a week to work on their businesses, you just don't have the luxury of faffing about, going off on tangents on things that aren't getting you results. So that's the strategy that we've developed. That's what we do with our clients, and that's kind of what my strength is I've, without realizing it when we started out, I've developed into the sort of the strategy ninja, we've started calling it. So what I do is I get together with our mums and they put me through what they're doing, and I can quite quickly pinpoint some of the areas where they could really make some changes to start getting better results and to be more productive and what they're doing. So that's what I do, and then Jo specialises in helping them take action on that. She's like, we call her the chief implementer. So I sort of help with strategy, and then she helps to get it done, basically. Yeah. So that was a long-winded answer, wasn't it?
It's a great answer as well, and you've just made me think I must go back and look at my strategy. Oops, and look at my strategy again. She said kicking over the bin. Okay. So as you say, absolutely key to be very clear about what you're doing, and therefore what you need to do to achieve that, and what you don't need to do. And how do you then sort of change that into, today I'm going to do this? Do you have certain sort of routines of things you do on certain days, or do you just look at the strategy at the time and work out what you're doing, or do you have ongoing lists? How do you manage that?
Yeah, so I'm a huge advocate of Asana, and I also believe that there's other really great project management tools, but it's using some sort of tool like that can help you manage your work week, separate to your email provider. And so I manage everything from Asana, and our whole team is managed via Asana. So I set up projects, or we set up projects in there and assign them to the person responsible, and we manage everything through there, really. And I just find that invaluable. And so even in there we use that to as a template tool as well for different things that we're doing. For example, if we're running giveaways, when we first started running those, we created a template in Asana so that now whenever we want to run a giveaway, we've already got a template with all the tasks in place and all the things that need to be done. So it's much easier for us to delegate that to our VA, and it's already all in place. And the same with our latest project, which is launching our own podcast. We've got all the templates in place now, and it makes it a lot more efficient. And there's no way that we could do that if we weren't using Asana. It would be just a nightmare trying to do all of that via email. So Asana is one that definitely makes a huge difference for us in terms of the day-to-day project management. But again, we check in with those milestones all the time and make sure that the projects that we're working on, we have what we call a parking lot, which is where we put things where we're like, should we really be working on this right now? Those bright, shiny objects that come up and you're like, this looks really cool, but should we actually be doing it right now? We're constantly asking ourselves that question, and if it's a no, if it doesn't fit with what our current targets are, then we put it in the parking lot and come back to it later.
I love that idea. Yeah. So how do you then manage email as well as using Asana? Do you give yourself particular times, or do you find yourself getting stuck in emails, or do you very
so there's I'm not as disciplined as I could be, but because up until recently I've only been working 12 hours a week, so I did find that I was getting really disciplined and just had to just be so focused, otherwise I just wasn't getting done what I needed to get done. I tend to what I do ideally is not open my email first thing, is to go into Asana and go to my inbox in Asana, and that's where all the messages come through on progress, that we've been making on various projects. But sometimes, if I'm honest, often I check my emails first, just because I often want to see what's been happening, and I get excited about what's coming through my inbox. But I have got quite good at managing that. I've unsubscribed from a heck of a lot of stuff, and there's one tool that your listeners might want to know about, and I'm not sure if you've heard of it, Joe. It's brilliant, and I'm just trying to look in my inbox to remember what it's called, but it's for unsubscribing.
Is it the unroll.me or something?
Yes, Unroll Me.
Yeah, somebody else recommended that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I just think it's absolutely brilliant. It's like a constant reminder, that you can unsubscribe from things, because I think it's something that sometimes you open your inbox and you're like, I must go through and unsubscribe from a whole lot of stuff. Yeah. Whereas if you use Unroll Me, it just helps you keep on top of it, and you can, you're unsubscribing from things all the time, and it's made a huge difference to my inbox. Yeah. As well. Yeah.
I must have a look at that. I use SaneBox for my emails, and there is a black hole option, and so I can send stuff to there rather than unsubscribing, which is quite quick. But somebody else recommended Unroll.me, and I thought I must check that out, because it sounds like, does it prompt you to yes, right, yeah,
like once a week or something, it'll say you've subscribed to X number of new thingies, like 9 or whatever, and it'll come up, and you just don't even realize that you've. No. Some of them seem to be old ones as well that might come back through your inbox. That, you don't realize how many things that you've subscribed to. So I'm constantly unsubscribing from things I didn't even realize I was subscribed to.
And sometimes you subscribe to get something, don't you? And you think, I must remember to unsubscribe afterwards, and then you don't get round to it. So I can see why that would help in that case. Excellent. Well, I'm going to check that one out. Never mind the listeners. So, are there any other tools or apps that you use that you think would be worth recommending?
Yeah, I've got a couple of quick ones. LastPass for people who have trouble remembering passwords.
Yeah, love it.
That saves a lot of time for us. And the other one is canned responses in Gmail, which is a template tool. I just find, I've got a bunch of templates saved in there now, and that saves me hours of time composing emails. And we use Google Hangouts a lot too. Yeah. So those were the ones that came up for me as useful tools. Yeah,
I've used the canned responses. I gave up and started using something called Shortkey instead, because I kept finding my canned responses had disappeared, which clearly sort of takes away the benefit of creating them in the first place. So I'm not quite sure why that was happening, but I'd set them up and then happily use them for a while, and then they'd disappear. So I started to use, as I say, Shortkeys instead, which does a similar thing, but helps anywhere. So it's a bit like Text Expander on the iPhone and Macs and so on. So you can type in a load of text and then just give it a little code, and then when you type the code in, it expands to type in whatever it was. So a bit like the canned response, but for other places as well as just in your emails. So
Oh, that sounds good. I have to check that. I hope that doesn't happen to me. I'll be in a real panic if canned responses deletes all my templates.
Yeah, when you said you had a lot, I was thinking, well, in my experience, I only had one, and it used to disappear regularly. But hopefully they're better now. Hopefully they've made it more robust.
I hope so.
So I'm just so impressed to be talking to somebody who does work very limited hours very successfully. I mean, I see what you're doing online, and I know how active you are at building your brand and your profile and so on. So I think it's really inspirational for people to hear that. What about when you're not working? Because you've clearly got more time than the rest of us. So, what do you do when you're not working?
What do we do? Well, I guess, when you've got 2 kids under 5, basically the rest of the time is taken up hanging out with them, because I really wanted to have plenty of time to spend with them at this age. So it's a lot of just hanging out with the kids, but as a family, the kind of things that we like to do are we like to get out to the beach, into the bush as much as possible. We've got some land. We live about a 50-minute drive from the beach, so we've got some land out there that we bought quite a few years ago. It's quite a large block that we co-own with some family members, and it's got native forest on it. And it's got a falling down old hut that my partner Sam and I are fixing up. And we want to spend more and more time out there. And my dream eventually is to be working from there as well, and to be spending extended periods of time out there, because we just love being in nature, and Sam loves to surf, and we love being at the beach, and we just would love to provide experience for our kids as well. So that's our sort of one of our biggest passions outside of work. We also love to travel, and we did a lot of that before the kids came along, and we're interested in doing some more traveling with our children in the future. That's a wee way off yet, but that's sort of always on our radar. And other than that, look, we're both really active in our community. So we were both born in this small town, Masterton. I think we're probably like one hospital ward over from each other, a couple of weeks apart. So we're really committed to this community and to this place. So we're both involved. Sam's really involved in the local arts scene, and I'm involved. We're both involved in environmental-based work, and I work 3 hours a week on a kind of my passion project as well, which is a river project that we were talking about earlier. So yeah, that keeps us kind of busy outside of work.
Lovely. And what about looking after yourself sort of health-wise? I mean, clearly all the outdoor stuff will be really helping with that. What about things like diet and nutrition and sleep and things like that? Do you focus on that, or is it something that just happens because you're living a healthier lifestyle? No,
I mean, it happened a lot more easily before kids, because I was in past careers, I've worked as a leader in outdoor adventure, so I had a really active lifestyle, and I didn't have to think about it very much because I was so active all the time. But now I find it definitely more of a challenge, but I do have to focus on it. I don't have any excuses for the times when I'm not keeping fit and doing my exercise and things, because I do think I do have the time. When the kids were really little, I think sometimes I really struggled if I wasn't getting enough sleep to motivate myself, but I don't really have that excuse anymore. So I tend to exercise. My goal is to exercise, maybe 4 times a week, and some weeks I do that and some weeks I don't. But what I do is I'm a member of an online gym called foreverfit.tv, which is run by a Kiwi woman called Nicola Smith, and I've interviewed her a couple of times actually. I love her business model, and I love what she's doing. And so she's a personal trainer who took her business online, and she's got this incredible online gym, and it's packed full of quick and easy workouts that are really effective. So it's great for mums who don't have a lot of time, or anybody really who don't have a lot of time to exercise. So I can get a couple of those in a week, and she does so many different types of exercise. There's a program in there for everything, and it's all by video. That's great.
I really love that idea, although let's point out to the listeners, you do actually have to do what she's telling you to do in the video. You can't just watch it, can you?
No, I wish.
Doesn't count if you just watch it.
Yeah, but she does do quite a bit of stuff to kind of motivate you, like there's boot camps, and there's yoga. She's just done a yoga challenge, so there's a sense of community. But what I'm finding is now that the weather's finding up, I'm wanting to be out on my bike more, and I've got one of those bike trailers, so sometimes I bike the kids to daycare and try to be as active as I can in my everyday life. And her gym also she's really into nutrition, so she has a menu app that I use, and I really tried to focus on just eating whole foods, and so I do the best that I can. And I've just reintroduced recently, I don't know if you've heard of an app called Headspace.
Yeah.
It's a meditation app, so Joe and I have both signed up for that in the last couple of months, and we put that on the business because we decided it was, mindset and being in a good headspace is really central to being a living a healthy and successful life as an entrepreneur. So yeah, we're both using Headspace, and again, it's one of those things that you should do it, and it's hard, but it's hard sometimes. But I'm doing quite well with it, and I really like the way it motivates you, and it reminds you that you need to, you haven't meditated for a few days, and I get a lot of benefit out of meditation. I've been doing that for a long time, but again, it was one of those things that sort of fell by the wayside when the kiddies came along, and it's great to be getting back into it.
Yeah, I haven't checked that out. I use a podcast that I've recommended on the podcast before, but it doesn't sort of motivate you or remind you or any of those things. You have to do that bit yourself, and I have to say I've not used it very often, so maybe I need something to encourage me to get on with that. It's finding what works for you, isn't it? And it's interesting. Little Doddsy and I were having a discussion at the weekend about her needing to do certain things that I just end up, nagging her about, and I don't want her to do that, and she doesn't want me to do that either. But then how is she going to manage her time? And obviously I'm trying to say, use Todoist. That's what I use for my tasks, which of course is of no interest to a 9-year-old. But I can't remember what she said, but I found her an app where it's a gamified app. So basically she said if she was playing and getting points or something, then she'd be more interested. So I went and did a search for gamification and to-do lists, and it's called, I don't know how you pronounce it, it's Habitica or something. And she's just started using it this week, and I'm amazed at how much it's actually encouraging her to do stuff, because she wants to get the points, because she wants to find out what she can do with the points when she's gone. I think she thinks I'm going to pay her for it at the end, which I'm not. But it is about finding what works for you, isn't it, and what fits with your style of being motivated or being able to motivate yourself.
Exactly.
So what about learning and improving yourself? What sort of things do you do to do that?
It was really interesting reflecting on that question when you sent it through, because I hadn't really thought about it, but because I used to do a lot of my learning from books, and I've got a few books here on the table. I got them out when I was sort of thinking about your question, that have influenced me, probably in my life really to date. And but then I was thinking, what sort of learning am I doing now? And I realised just how much more I'm doing my learning via podcast or online, like even sometimes via things that come through Facebook, or Sam and I listen to a lot of TED Talks. He has his TED Talks on a lot and podcasts a lot in his studio when he's working, and we're really we're doing a lot of our learning via new online technologies now, so it's quite interesting just to reflect on that.
Yes, I'm much the same. I love reading, but I'm finding that listening is so much more convenient with the things that I'm doing, so I tend to agree. And the TED Talks are amazing, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's pretty empowering that you can get that level of access to people with so much knowledge so easily, from your home. I just find it's really cool. And I've been going through a phase of trying to get out for an evening walk a couple of times a week too, and I tend to listen to podcasts then, and sometimes I'll listen to business related stuff, especially because we're launching our own podcast at the moment, but often I'll just listen to stuff that I'm interested in as well, and there's just so much there to discover. It's incredible.
So what were the books that you got out before you realised that you'd do more online?
I'm staring at them now. So I guess it'd be over the last couple of decades. These are the kind of books because with books I try not to gather up too many, but there are some that I buy because I know I'm going to look at them again and again, or they've had such a big impact on the way that I see the world that I have to have a copy on my shelf, even though I never read them anymore. So a couple of the kind of life ones are, there's one called Full Catastrophe Living, which is a meditation one, and it's about mindfulness meditation. So that was one that really influenced me a lot when I was first getting into meditation, and just using meditation as a tool for self-awareness and staying balanced and just getting to know yourself better. There's Succulent Wild Woman by Sark, and I don't know if you've heard of Sark, but her books are just cracked me up. She's an artist who has pretty much built a business empire, become a very savvy businesswoman, and she just writes these books that they're funny, they're creative and artistic. They've got lots of drawings in them, and they're all about living life, succulently, dancing with your wonderful self. And I remember the phase when I was working through those, and they were cracking me up, and a lot of it was about getting in touch with your creativity, but also just being okay with your flawed self, just being okay with who you are, all the good things and the bad things.
I just think a book with the title Succulent in has got to be read, hasn't it? It just sounds such a good word.
Yeah. So there's a lot of humour in her stuff. And there's another one that I've got here called, I doubt many of your readers have heard of, which is called The Fourfold Way. And this is a leadership book. It's Walking the Path of the Warrior, Teacher, Healer, and Visionary, and it's by Angelise Arian, and she's an anthropologist. And this was kind of the textbook that my life coach gave me when I was in my mid-20s maybe, and I did a life coaching program. I'd just been through a relationship breakup, and I was in one of those, transitional times when I was doing a lot of reflecting and thinking about where I wanted to go, and I did this coaching with her, and this book was a part of that, and it's such a fantastic book. And it's all about Indigenous wisdom and her research she did on cultures from all around the world, and what we in the Western world can learn from that in terms of how we live our daily lives and how we view ourselves and our relationship to the environment and that sort of thing. So it's got lots of practical exercises in it as well. So she introduces each of the archetypes, and then there's exercises that you can do, and it's personal development. It's increasing self-awareness and just getting back in touch with, who you are. So that one's had quite a big influence on me, and I use it in my coaching as well, both business and personal coaching that we do.
That sounds really interesting.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Excellent. So
I've got a couple more.
Go on then.
You want to hear about
yeah,
them?
go on then.
Move on?
No, go on then.
The other ones are kind of life ones. The Omnivore's Dilemma, which is about food. And because I was a vegetarian for about 12 years, and this is sort of one of the books that I ended up moving back to eating meat again.
Right.
And then Radical Simplicity, which is all about basically a less is more approach to living your life, and that's really influenced where we've taken the business, really, if I think about it, because it's all about how the choices that you make in terms of what you spend and how you set your life up influence how much you need to work, and what we can do to set ourselves up so that we are having a smaller footprint on the earth, as well as being able to do more of what we love doing, and not be so focused on having to work to pay the bills or pay the mortgage or whatever it is that's putting that pressure on us. Yeah, Radical Simplicity.
That's such a great list of books. None of them had I heard of before, so that's really added a bit of it's probably a bit of an Antipodean stuff into the podcast, but really helpful. So I'm going to go and check all of those out. Thank you very much.
Slightly hippie, slightly radical, slightly Antipodean,
Yeah, brilliant. So what about on a day when things don't go right? You've painted quite an idyllic picture. I'm really hankering after moving to New Zealand and working less hours and all those other things and having a hut on the beach. But what about if things don't go right? What happens then?
Oh, yeah. I definitely have to be up front and say that happens. I mean, we certainly have ups and downs, and building a business isn't easy. And, Joe and I have been doing this for 5 years now, and it's only really in the last year or so that we've started to feel like, that those moments of doubt that you have, those oh shit moments, is this ever going to work? Are we ever going to make enough money? Think about what I could be making if I was working in the corporate sector, all those moments that you have when you're building a business. We've had those, and that, that puts pressure on your family lifetimes at times as well, especially when you've got young kids and all that stuff. We've definitely been through all those ups and downs, and for me, I guess that's where the things like the meditation and that come in. Like, I definitely lose the plot sometimes, and am a grumpy, awful person. But I guess as I get older, I'm getting better at being more aware and noticing my signs for when I'm getting out of balance, when I'm overtired, when I need to take some time for myself, and I definitely still don't get it right all the time, but I'm getting there, and that's probably one of my biggest learnings, is just how important it is to give yourself that time when you need it, to be able to recognise those signs, and also just keep perspective about what's important and what's not.
Yeah, good point. Okay, so last question now. On a day when you've ended the day knowing that you've had that chance to live more, and I talk about living more being, the stuff that you want to do rather than the stuff that you have to do or that you feel that you should do. What have you done? What does that day look like?
I've spoken to interesting people. I love interviewing and talking with people that are doing really interesting things and that I learn from. And I've served my clients and contributed to their success. Like, I love it when I get an email from a client saying that they've had a success, or something that I sent through to them has been really useful, or something that I said to them has made a difference to them. And my ideal day, I've had that, but it's been balanced with being in the outdoors and spending time with my kids and partner. And so if I can get that right balance between all of those things, that sort of professional reward as well as that personal balance, then I'm a pretty happy chappy.
Yeah, definitely. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Excellent. So it's been so good interviewing you, and it's really good to interview people from other parts of the world as well, because you sort of get to see a different slant on things. And as I say, I am hankering a bit for being there rather than here, but then the sun has come out, so hey, maybe it's not so bad here. So it's been so good talking to you. So Janine, how can people find out more about you? How can people connect with you?
Yeah, well, easiest place to find us is over at our website, which is getitdonemum.com. mum.com, not mum. And yeah, so we've got a great e-course that we give away over there with a free workbook that goes with it, so they can come and check us out there if they're interested more about the business side of things. And we're also launching a podcast in the next few weeks, so if you'd like to listen to some of the stuff we're chatting about on the podcast, we'd love to have you visit. And the focus of that is around building a business in 20 hours a week or less. So a lot of our interviews are focused around that. So we've got lots of free information that you can check out. You can join our list and keep in touch. We'd love to hear from you if what we're doing is of interest to you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Janine. It's been great talking to you today.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. Enjoyed it.
Joe's Gems.
This is the part of the show where I do a recap of the key points of the interview, the stuff that I really liked, and the apps, books, music, tips and tools that were shared. This is for you if you heard something that you want to check out but you couldn't write it down at the time. Hopefully I've got you covered. And this is the bit for the really time pressed. You can just listen here and get the gems from the interview, but of course I wouldn't suggest you do that and miss out on the great conversation that I had with Janine. The first tool that we talked about is Asana, and Janine says that she's a huge advocate of it, and with their latest project, which is launching their own podcast, they had all the templates set up and it makes it a lot more efficient. And actually I use Asana to process this podcast, and with exactly the same plan in place, actually copied from Janine. She kindly shared the templates that they use when they do their podcast with me as I was putting mine together, and I've sort of tweaked it and really made it work for my podcast. So I'd thoroughly recommend Asana as well. We talked about unroll.me, which is a tool that you can use to make unsubscribing from newsletters quick and easy. And I also recommend SaneBox, which I use for managing and triaging my email. And that also has an option to add newsletters to what it calls the @Sane black hole folder, which in effect means that you just don't see the newsletters. So you don't actually unsubscribe, they just get sent off somewhere. Janine also talked about canned responses in Gmail, which is a tool that you can use to create templates so that when you're sending the same emails on a regular basis, you can use the template rather than having to start emails from scratch each time. Janine also talked about using Google Hangouts a lot. And I mentioned short keys, which is what I use on my PC to create templates and use them when I type in a code. So I type in # and then a code, and whatever I've saved for that particular template sort of magically appears. You can also use something called Text Expander for Macs and iPads and iPhones. Janine says we're both using Headspace. Joe and I have both signed up for that in the last couple of months, and we put that on the business because we decided the mindset of being in a good headspace is really essential to living a healthy and successful life as an entrepreneur. And I talked about doing a search for a gamification to-do list tool to find something to suit little Dodsy, and I found something called Habitica, which went down very well with her. When we talked about learning, Janine talked about how she's realised that recently she's doing her learning via podcasts or online through sometimes even things like Facebook, and listening to things like TED Talks, and just sort of pointing out that a lot of her learning is being done via new online technologies, where in the past it might have just been about reading a book or perhaps going to an event. The books that Janine recommended, the first one was Full Catastrophe Living by Jon Kabat-Zinn, which is a meditation book about mindfulness and meditation. She also recommended Succulent Wild Woman by Sark, and she says she's an artist who has pretty much built a business empire, become a very savvy businesswoman, and she just writes these books that are funny, they're creative and artistic, and they've got lots of drawings in them, and they're all about living life succulently and dancing with your wonderful self. I just like the fact that it says succulently. It just seems like an interesting word to use in relation to your life. Another book was The Fourfold Way, which Janine says is a leadership book. Its subtitle is Walking the Path of the Warrior, Teacher, Healer and Visionary, and it's by Angeles Arian, who's an anthropologist, and it was the textbook that Janine was given by her life coach when she was in her mid-20s, and she was doing a life coaching program. Another book was The Omnivore's Dilemma, which is about food, and Janine says she recommended it because I was a vegetarian for about 12 years, and this is one of the books that I ended up moving back to eating meat again. And then finally, Radical Simplicity, which is all about basically a less is more approach to living your life. Janine says that's really influenced where they've taken their business, if she thinks about it, because it's all about how the choices that you make in terms of what you spend and how you set your life up influence how much you need to work and what you can do to set yourself up so that you're having a smaller footprint on earth, as well as being able to do more of what you want to do, more of the stuff that you love doing, and not be focused on having to work so much to pay the bills or pay the mortgage or whatever it is that's putting that pressure on you. So moving on to the tips. The first one that Janine shared that I thought was worth putting into the show notes was, she said, I guess the key one here for us and what we're teaching about a lot is around strategy, because we believe that no matter how many to-do lists you have or how many amazing technological tools you're using, if you don't have your strategy right, it doesn't matter. You're still not going to achieve what you're setting out to achieve if you don't have the right strategy in place. And she says we consistently see people spending a lot of time on things that aren't actually contributing to what it is they want to achieve in their business. Another one she shared was that what they do to be really productive and really focused is they have two really clear milestones that they have for the business. And she said usually one's around an income generation milestone, and one for them is about an audience building milestone. And that generally plays out with most of their clients too. Another tip that she gave, which I thought was really good in terms of prioritising and not having too much on your plate, is she says they have what they call a parking lot, which is where they put things where when they've sort of thought to themselves and discussed whether they should really be working on that particular project right now. Should, you get those bright shiny objects that come up and you think, oh, that's really cool, and you want to sort of do it, but then you realise actually that it's not a priority at that moment. And she says they constantly ask themselves the question of, should we really be working on this right now? And if it's no, and it doesn't fit with what their current targets are, then they put it into the parking lot and come back to it later. And Janine shared that she works 3 hours a week on her passion project. I liked the phrase passion project. In her case, it's a river project, which is involved with the local community. And then when I asked Janine how she copes with things when they go wrong, she talked about as she's getting older, she's getting better and more aware at noticing the signs for when she's out of balance and overtired, and when she needs perhaps some time for herself. She says she doesn't get it right all the time, but she's definitely getting there, and that's one of the sort of big learnings, is how important it is to give yourself time when you need it to recognise the signs and just keep perspective about what's important and what isn't. And Janine talked about, as I do, going for walks and actually listening to podcasts at that time She says she listens to business-related stuff, especially because they launched their own podcast late last year, 2015, but also she just listens to stuff that she's interested in as well and how much there is out there to discover. A website that Janine recommended is foreverfit.tv, run by a lady from New Zealand called Nicola Smith. And she is basically a personal trainer who took her business online, and she's got an online gym and information about nutrition and so on. And Janine says it's packed full of quick and easy workouts that are really effective and really helpful for a lot of working mums that they talk to, because the sort of workouts fit into their busy lives. And then to contact J9 or Janine, depending on what you're going to call her, you can go to their website, which is getitdonemum.com, and that's MUM, getitdonemum.com. And also they have launched their podcast. I think I interviewed her whilst they were in the throes of launching theirs, and took me a while longer to get mine out. But they have some really interesting people that they're interviewing on there, and it's very much focused around building your business in 20 hours a week or less. So if you're interested, then there's a link in the show notes to be able to get to their podcast, or you can just go and do a search in iTunes for Get It Done Mum. As ever, all this information is available on the show notes on the website powertolivemore.com/10 to get to Janine's interview. If you'd like to sign up to get my weekly newsletter with more tips, strategies, ideas and tools to improve your power, you can do that on the website too.
Use your power to live more.
Again, the link for this show is powertolivemore.com/10, and we look forward to speaking to you next time.